think it's a good time to begin, at least since we have one of our presenters here. And it's my greatest pleasure to welcome you to the African Tea Time series. It's always a pleasure, actually, especially for our new members who are joining for the first time. We're very happy to have you here, and we welcome you and hope that you'll continue joining us. So today's talk, I think to me and most of us, is a very fascinating and a very essential one. And I know those of us who have been at MSU in the past years, recently we had a Year of Global Africa. And that was a celebration that took close to 2 years, actually almost 2 years, where we had different events focusing on Africa and particularly global Africa, reflecting our connections, the MSU connections with our partners all over the world, including our partners in the African diaspora. And I'm so glad that today looks like it's going to be a day of Global Africa, maybe an evening and afternoon of Global Africa. It's an extension of somehow those discussions, but then giving them a different perspective, another perspective of a discussion on the African diaspora and in connection with Africa. And the title or theme for today is Year of Return 2019. Year of Return to Ghana. Year of Return Ghana, that's specifically what it's called. I'm not an expert in this subject, and I don't want to talk so much about it. What I want to do right now is to introduce again our facilitators who have always been helping us run this conversation. And today's facilitator is Dr. Tutilo Mudumba. And Dr. Mudumba is currently in Tanzania. He's a faculty member in the University of in Uganda. I'm so sorry, Uganda. And he's a faculty member at Makerere University. He's going to be the facilitator for today's event. And then also with us right now is Ebenezer Ansah. He facilitated the discussion last week. Is one of our 3 facilitators, and the other one is Dr. Jorem Awadu. I think he's most likely going to join today. I was just looking around to see, maybe I'm missing him. So those are our 3 facilitators, and I keep introducing them every week, every other time that we have a tea time, because you'll be seeing them quite often. So I don't want to introduce the speaker because I'm not facilitating the tea time event. Mine was just to welcome you, and I will hand over to Dr. Mudumba to continue the discussion. Thank you so much and welcome.
Thank you so much, everybody, and thank you, Dr. Damaris Chochi. And today's talk, like all our tea times, is brought to you by Kongamano. And Kongamano is the association that brings together faculty and staff to discuss about everything African. The week's topic is Ghana and USA. I focus on Global Africa, or Year of Return Ghana 2019. A little bit about African tea time for the first timers. African tea times are an opportunity to learn and share about first-hand experience in the African continent. The tea times are open to everybody, and they are held every other Thursday. So we have it this Thursday, and then the next we want, and the other one will. It occurs between 4 and 6 p.m. EST. My name is Tutilo again, and I'm talking to you from Uganda, right on the east of Africa. Looks like I have the old schedule for the African tea time. Remind me if I'm wrong, but I'm looking at Prof. Marcel as the presenter for today, and I do not see his.
That would be an old one, because today's presenter is Nia, and Nia.
Yes.
And
yes.
And Nia is here. So right. Nia is going to go first. I forgot to mention that.
Sorry. Nia will talk to us about the Year of Return still, and we welcome you, Nia. Feel free to write down your questions that we will take at the end of the talk. Most welcome, Nia, and thank you everybody for joining us today.
I'm not sure the screen. Oh my God. Introduce yourself. Okay, Sarah's gonna share the screen with you guys. Yeah, see.
Can you make me a host, Nicole?
Yeah.
And Nia, feel free to introduce yourself, please.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, so hi everyone. My name is Nia. I am a first year MPH student at the University of Michigan School of Public Health. I am studying health behavior and health education. And I'm concentrating on like health disparities, particularly in low income urban areas that have a high concentration of African American and Latinx people. And I just graduated this past spring from Spelman College, and that's actually where I got the opportunity to travel to Ghana. So I will talk to you guys about that. How do you Where's the present?
I don't know. Can you see?
Okay. Oh yeah.
Oh,
it's
here
right
we go.
there.
Can you
Okay.
see?
Yes, we can see the screen.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So to start, I'll just kind of talk about like why I chose to go to Ghana and like how I got there. So I always wanted to go to Africa. I was raised in a family that focused a lot on Black history, and obviously our history in this country has a lot to do with where we started, which is in the African continent, and we got here obviously by chattel slavery, but we've come quite a long way. We still have a long way to go. So like I said, I attended Spelman College, and every year they have like different destinations where we can go for study abroad. So in 2019, Ghana was on the list, and I also was taking an African diaspora course where we talked a lot about how it was 2019 and the first shipment of enslaved Africans reached the United States in 1619. So therefore, obviously 2019 marked 400 years since the beginning of slavery, which is how the, what, you good? How the year of return came about. So I took the opportunity to apply for a scholarship to attend the trip and go to Ghana. So I was there for 2 weeks, and I took courses. Well, I took I think I took like 3 short courses at the University of Ghana. But the part of the trip that really stuck with me the most, which I will show you all in a second, is we got to go to Cape Coast Castle, and that was like something that was on my bucket list just because I had heard about people going there and literally like feeling the presence of our ancestors within the castle and especially in the slave dungeons. So I got on the plane and I was there for 2 weeks and it was a great time. So like I said, Cape Coast Castle was what stood out to all of you. Have probably seen this before, but this is just a picture of the outside of the castle. So it's obviously in Ghana, in Cape Coast. And just to give people a little background, if you don't know already, it was constructed in 1652. And it started off just as like a European trading post and like the headquarters of some of the British colonial administration. And then it kind of transitioned into becoming a holding place for slaves before they made their transition to the West. And up to, at any given time, I learned that there were up to 1,500 enslaved Africans. And I think it was like 2/3 male were held in the dungeons at any given time. And I have a picture on the next slide of the slave dungeons, but just to give you all an idea, like it was so, I've never been in a space that small. And there's no windows, no light, barely any ventilation. And just to imagine that there were that many people, that many of our people in one place at one time with no food, no water. We were forced to defecate in those spaces. People were very ill and disease spread very quickly. And like I said, I'll show you guys on the next slide, but it was just very eye-opening to be in that space. And there were actual church facilities, Catholic church facilities on top, directly on top of the slave dungeons. And at the slave castle, there were many connections to a lot of modern institutions that we have now. For example, there was documentation of Liberty Mutual insurance that was used to insure the slaves, because obviously we were property on their journey. And if they didn't make it, then the slave owners would be reimbursed for their property. So just, it was really eye-opening just to see those institutions of wealth and how they've been in place for so long and how they've contributed to the sorry, my dog is in the background if you all can hear him, but how they've contributed to the unequal distribution of wealth that we still see in our country today. So this was that's the outside of one of the slave dungeons, one of the male slave dungeons. So they literally just have like the signs over each door, like whether it was for male or female slaves. And then that is a picture of the inside of the slave dungeon. So as you can see, there's little to no light. There's just literally like one little bitty window, and the door was very narrow. But as we were taking our tour, they were telling us how the slaves were just pushed through and forced obviously into the dungeons while they were waiting their final departure from the continent. And when you go in there, you can feel how hard it was to breathe, because there was very little ventilation with just our small group of about like 10 or so people in that cell at one time, and it was very uncomfortable. So I could only imagine what our ancestors felt being held in there for extended periods of time with hundreds to thousands of us in one dungeon at once. So this is just like a picture. So it's kind of interesting to me because the outside of the coast is so beautiful, but such horrendous things happened within that slave castle. So this other picture to the right is one of the dungeons. They just had like a display of some of the things that were left behind by our ancestors before they were stripped of their possessions and their clothing and their dignity and taken away from their homeland. Let's see. So yeah, so kind of going into like the year of the return. First, I just wanted to touch on the door of no return, which is kind of how we got the name of the year of return. So this door, if you go, like when you walk through the slave castle, you go all the way to the end, and this door is facing the coast. Now, I think it looks a lot wider in this picture than it is in real life, but it's a very narrow door. And it says right at the top, door of no return. So this served as the final exit place for millions of enslaved Africans as we were ripped from our homeland and forced into the slave trade. So basically, after this door is where the ships were, and you just got pushed out and forced onto a ship, taken away from your family, your friends, all the culture and language that you were familiar with. And it was, we got to walk through it, and it was, I really can't describe how I felt. It was very uncomfortable and saddening just to think about, like, after you left this point, you were more than likely never going to see your loved ones or your homeland ever again. And then, like I said, right on the other side of that is literally the coastline where the enslaved people departed from. So on the other side of the slave castle, they have the door of return. And obviously that was created in reference to the door of no return and the year of return. And I know the other speaker is going to talk about like how the year of return was started and like why, but it's just really what we learned was to invite people of African heritage and those that are on the other side of the slave trade back to the country just to learn more about the atrocities that occurred and just connect with the land and the people and try to like facilitate some sort of a healing process. So like I said, that door is on the other side. And obviously it's been created within the last few years, so it doesn't lead to the outside. It's just something that was put together that's within the castle. And it says Door of Return at the top. And this one, I think, it looks more to size in this picture because it's not quite as small as the Door of No Return. So in terms of my future plans, I had a great time for the 2.5 weeks that I was there. I would love to return back to the country. Hopefully we'll be starting a PhD program within the next 2 years. And I would like to do a postdoc, if possible, at the University of Ghana. Obviously, that's contingent a lot upon our current global situation with COVID-19. But I would really love to go back and just, like I said, my research interests really focus a lot on disparities, well, particularly health disparities. And obviously, those really started with the fact that we've always been less than in this country because of the slavery and that we were subjected to. But I would love to go back. I had a great time. Some of the other things that we did there, we went to Kwame Nkrumah's gravesite, which was really cool. And yeah, I love the food. Everything is so fresh. I really had a great time. So yeah, does anyone have questions?
Thank you so much, Nia, for such an important introduction to what it means to have, a year of return to Ghana. And one of the things which comes to mind when somebody talks about the year of return, especially from somebody born and raised in a Western country, such as yourself, coming back to Africa, one thing that I always wonder is, do you at any one time go through a sense that you're home? Do you feel like you belong? Do you feel like are you satisfied, or do you leave wanting, not having hit what you really expected? Are your expectations met when you go through that year of return journey? Just wanted to pick your thoughts on that.
Yeah, so that's a very good question. So I definitely felt like I had kind of come full circle, I guess, so to speak, because I was, like you said, born and raised in this country, and I have no idea, unfortunately, like my family's lineage at all whatsoever. Like, we've actually tried to trace it, but it only goes back to like the mid 1800s, which doesn't give a lot of information. But I felt more whole and more in touch with myself and my Blackness, which is something that's very important to me. But I was also just kind of bothered because it's like, because of what happened to our people is why I don't know more about myself. So it kind of opened the door more for me to think about that at a more critical level than I had before. But yeah, all in all, I think it definitely helped.
All right, if there's anybody else with a question, we still have some time to field questions.
Dr. Mudumba, I think there is a question in the chat, so if you want to check that.
All right, I will go into the chat right away.
And whilst it does that, Nia, thank you very much for that nice presentation. And I'm glad that you loved coming to Ghana. My question, I guess, is a very simple one. What most surprised you during your visit?
I don't really think I was surprised by much. My dad has been to Africa before, specifically to Ghana, so he kind of gave me a pretty good briefing. I guess I was surprised by how welcoming everyone was. Not that I didn't think that they would be welcoming, but I just know that there's a lot of preconceived notions about American people, and those notions definitely are not aided by our current leadership about how we appear to the outside world. But everyone was very kind and welcoming and very informative, just even on an informal basis with the people that I met. So that was, I think, probably most surprising. It was a good surprise, but I was definitely kind of like bracing myself.
So could I say
Yeah.
something?
Let's go through one which is in the chat, and Jonathan would just like to know, how can Africans in the diaspora be connected with Mother Africa in a more fulfilling way? I think he wants us to explore the possibilities of going beyond the act of going back through a door and all that. How else can we? I think this can be attempted by Nia first, but we can all engage engage the question.
Okay, yeah, so I know for me, a big thing is just trying to learn as much as I can about our history and about what we can do like now, politically, economically, socially, to just contribute to the development of the continent. So like I said, for me, it's really just like a learning process. Like I said, learning as much as I can and trying to definitely get back at some point to do more academic work that can possibly benefit you know, everyone within the continent and for those of us that are on the other side of the diaspora.
Dr. Mudumba, I think Lisa wanted to say something.
Yes, Lisa, go ahead and either contribute to that to the conversation we just started, or you can ask a different question.
Okay, thanks. So thank you for sharing that, Nia. I just, as a African-American who has been in the US all of her life, when I first went to Africa, I was, I didn't know what to expect. I was excited because I felt like I was going back home, quote unquote. And like Nia said, I felt so welcome. Every country in Africa that I have been to, they just, the people are so welcoming to me, to me anyway. I don't know how they are to anybody else. All I know is they welcomed me with open arms, and I felt like I was at home. And the longer, I've been working in African studies for a long time, and I've come a long way from my thinking, my thought pattern from when I started 24 years ago about, you know, African culture. And it's just amazing to have your eyes open that, you know, we're all alike, you know, we just look different, and not, you know, even in the context of an African or African American. I mean, when you go to South Africa, you got South Africans that are white, you got, you know, South Africans that look like people in Nigeria, you got, you know, you got people in the US, African Americans that look like people that are in Nigeria, or, you know, it just, it's eye-opening to me. And I feel like it's just a matter of that we're all family, really. That's all I have. Thank you.
Yeah, Lisa, you put it very well that we're all actually the same. And if you cut deeper, we are actually down to the very same everywhere. Philip, you put up your hand.
Tutilo?
Yeah.
Yes, please.
May I just
Go on.
ask Nia to unshare the screen now so we can see the faces?
Oh God.
Nia? Nia, is Nia listening? I just wanted you to pull down the screen so we can see people's faces now.
Yeah, I think we unshared it. Did it not?
Oh, it is now. Thank you.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
Philip, you had your hand up. Could you go
Yeah.
ahead with the question?
Yeah, thank you. This is really more of a comment. And first of all, thank you so much, Nia. That was wonderful. And I think that was down to earth and very sincere. I do appreciate it. The question, how can Africans in the diaspora be connected more? It's a great question, but I think it's important to understand that it's a two-way street. There's, related to that question is the other fundamental question: how can people from different parts of Africa also connect more with with people in the diaspora? So I think the effort should go both ways, because while many of us weren't necessarily enslaved in the same way, we've really gone through similar experiences that dehumanize us and that force us to not really know who we are, and so that connection is lacking even on the African continent. We've had a colonial experience that has disconnected us from a lot of who we are. So I think the connection there should be connections within the continent, and then there should be efforts at connecting with the diaspora as well, because there is so much in the diaspora to learn from. African Americans and people of African descent in the Caribbean and Europe don't only have stuff to learn from Africa. We have a lot to learn from the dispersal. There's a lot to learn in terms of resilience, in terms of all the political achievements, the scientific achievements, the musical achievements, the achievements in the arts, and so on and so forth. And while the conversation is really about the Atlantic trade, let's also remember that there was another trade on the east coast of Africa that lasted longer, and that probably involved the dispersal of people of Africans in larger numbers that is hardly talked about. So education, I think, is fundamental, as well as interpersonal connections. It doesn't always have to be formal, in my opinion. When we think about education, many times we think about academics and bookwork, but I think part of the education is also making sincere connections. And those connections can happen in different spaces. It can happen in the classroom. It can happen, with people I meet in church. It can happen on several levels. But I think between education or re-education, and by the way, we have to educate ourselves. We can't rely on anybody else to do it for us. Education and sincere interpersonal connections, I think, will go a long way. But it's not a one-way street. I think it's something that should be done. The crisscrossing should be done at various levels. Thank you.
I was just going to say thank you so much, Philip, and you can't agree more. And especially also realizing that whereas some fields are doing much better, like the historians do a very good job in realizing the connectivity between spaces. So they will write about African history, they will write about, the geographers will do the same. They will draw very beautiful maps and show how the routes, how people were moved between places. Other places, other trades like mine conservation, especially wildlife conservation, it's not as straightforward as it is. Other fields such as education may be more on the right path to showing the connectiveness between the two places. I will acknowledge Eben's hand up and invite him to contribute to the discussion as well.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Mudumba. And that was a very great comment from Dr. Effiong. Thank you very much. I actually have been thinking of a question that I would like to build upon the point that Dr. Effiong just made in terms of how it's important to think of Africans also giving the space for our brothers in the diaspora to be able to come back home and feel welcome. I've been thinking of whether besides Ghana and the Year of Return initiative and program, if we have similar initiatives and programs happening elsewhere in other African countries. So I guess this is a question that I'm throwing to colleagues from Africa, or colleagues who are in Africa. Is there any other country, do we know of other initiatives in other countries that are similar to that of the Year of Return that's giving, because one of the important things that I know about the Year of Return program is that it's the government of Ghana is granting citizenships to African Americans who are willing to come back. So I'm just curious if there are things like that that are going on in other African countries.
If you allow me, I'll speak about Kenya.
Does anybody know of any other?
I don't. With Kenya, I've had any such plans, but I would think this is a political move, so it will depend. And I don't know whether it's just any connection with the fact that most of the people who were enslaved or were sold out from Africa came from West Africa. I know there are cases from East Africa as well. So if it were this kind of, if this kind of plan were to be implemented or to be initiated, it could be maybe in countries where for sure there's evidence, there are historical facts which connect those regions in Africa with the slave trade. But being a political issue, it will depend on the leadership of the country, the political climate, and how the political class in that country feels. Do they really need to connect? And that's why I was asking earlier, or there could be other ways people can connect with our peoples who live outside of Africa by not necessarily inviting them back home for political and other reasons.
Can I just, sorry, Damaris, just to answer Ebenezer's question, and of course, Jonathan has said something that I'm sure people have to, will comment on, but there's some things that have been done but have not been followed through. For instance, in Senegal in the 60s, there was a festival of the arts and culture that invited people from all over the diaspora to come and celebrate. And that was supposed to pull people together. It's just that I don't know if anything else has happened like that again in Senegal since then. And then in 1977, Nigeria also had the festival, Black Festival of the Arts and Culture, but nothing like that has happened again. It's not been followed through. So in answer to your question, I think it's the extent to which it's been done. I don't think that what was supposed to be achieved in those festivals were really achieved because they were not followed through. They were not developed. They didn't go beyond just those events. I think Ghana is doing something on a comprehensive level that I'm not sure any other African countries is doing. I do agree with Jonathan that on some levels, if it becomes a government thing or a political thing, then there are going to be obstacles. And it's a great question. How do we move beyond that and look for other ways of connecting?
Okay, Tutilo, can I go ahead?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, thank you so much. I just wanted to piggyback on the point that Jonathan raised and the comment that Philip has made about the year of return, not necessarily returners in general. I mean, if it has ever happened anywhere, which perhaps has not, but then the political part of it, and I think this is a question that I really want to ask Ivy, our next presenter, who is going to come in at around 5. So I was in another meeting where the presenters, I mean, the discussion was on the year of return, some aspects of the year of return. And one thing that I learned actually from that presentation is that not everybody, especially from the American side, the person that was speaking is from the American side. I won't talk about the diaspora elsewhere. They just have kind of issues with the invitation to go back. Some people feel like it's not a genuine one where you're being welcomed back home. Some people feel like, oh, this is an agenda to boost the economy of Ghana, for example. Like they feel there's a political issue going on around the welcome to go back to Africa, especially in Ghana, because the discussion was based in Ghana. So it's something that I really want to ask the next presenter. I don't know if Ivy is able to respond to this, because I don't really know that you have all the background information about how it started, who initiated it, was the agenda for it. But the political aspect is something that I really want us to touch on today, but I don't think we have the capacity to discuss that now. But I think it's something, I'm just trying to make you wait for Ivy for some, so then we can have this.
Yeah,
it's really important just to hear what, because when I heard about Year of Return the first time, it was really a great thing, and I believe it is. In me, I said, wow, that's a great initiative, welcoming the African diaspora back in home from wherever they are. And it was a one way for me, like, wow, I would love to return. This is something that I want to do. But somehow some people feel that it's not for everybody. Maybe it's for celebrities. There's some other things involved in going back. Just saying come back is not enough. There's a cost involved, there are processes involved, there are procedures involved, and it paints a picture that most of the people that want to return and stay, or maybe connect more as celebrities, people who are doing well economically, I should say. So it's a question I really want us to discuss, but I'm putting it out there that when Ivy comes, we need to talk about that.
And just to thank you, Damaris, for raising that issue. I just wanted to add a few more dimensions to the discussion. The first one is I'm really wondering about why the Year of Return is pitched to African Americans. And does this apply to Nigerians, Zimbabweans like me? And if it does or it does not, how do we make sense of why the call is directed towards people who are in the US or some places else? And again, I think it's fundamental to understand what relationships means among people of African descent. And why is the bond stronger for Ghana and the people who are organizing the Year of Return? Why is it stronger with African Americans, less so with people from Lesotho, Botswana, and you name it? The last piece is I also really struggle with the citizenship issue. I don't have all the details, but probably someone here does. I understand the notion of citizenship that's granted to returnees is it's limited. You could get some benefits, but I'm not sure if you can actually vote in elections like national to determine who the president is. I'm not sure whether that's included. And if you get properties as someone who has returned, do you get your title deeds from in perpetuity, or is it if a government changes, can you be guaranteed that you still retain your properties? Those are just a few things I wanted to throw out.
Allow me to respond to the first part question you posed. Opinion. Is that okay, Tutilo?
Yes, please go.
Even before Europeans came to buy us and enslave us, Africans moved around their environments. There was internal immigration, and that's expected for in any society, even whether it's in the wild or in the human society. And so by inviting Africans from the diaspora to come home as in the Year of Return for Ghana, it's really self-explanatory why they continue. Even the boundaries between Botswana and Zimbabwe, South Africa, these are colonial legacies, and they are a part of our being today. So you find people like in Kenya and Tanzania and Uganda, you find families across the border. So if we want to invite our brothers from Uganda to Kenya, we can cross if you want and see your uncle across the border. So there's no invitation needed in this context. So even if you were to invite them, okay, Nigerians come back to Kenya, you're gonna prioritize. We are giving Nia and Sarah an opportunity to come back to Africa because to trace where their ancestors came from. That's really what it is. I don't have the details, but I think that's the kind of thinking behind trying to connect the Africa in the diaspora and the contemporary Africa.
Thank you so much, Jonathan. And I think we need to redefine or broaden the definition of what we mean by the year of return. And it should be identified to be a symbol of the need to unite the two sides and the activities therein as a start to what it should be. I see under the year of return, several things happening. The world is becoming more unified. I see influence of information from either side of the Atlantic being actualized in either side as well. So I have so many friends here in Uganda who are eagerly following, for instance, the current situation in the Americas. And I have so many American friends who are eagerly following what will happen in Uganda next year. So that concern alone is also, in a way, a year of return, or in a way, symbolic of what should be happening. I believe eventually the energies will be more actualized in real time, because as it is now, we may want to return, but again, as everybody has realized, there are financial constraints, there are political, there are other barriers that may not make it happen. But again, everybody realizes that there's a need to return, there's a need to share resources across the borders, there's a need to discuss and build the knowledges which were broken when the people were separated. If I saw a hand from Eben, if it is still up, and Eben, you'd like to contribute as we wait for the next discussant, please go ahead.
Yeah, so first of all, let me say that I completely agree with Jonathan's comment with regards to what Maji was asking in terms of the invitation and how it appears to differ amongst Africans in the diaspora, particularly African Americans, and then Africans from other African countries. So my main point I want to make is with regards to Damaris's question and the concern that some people have shared regarding the political interest nature of the year of return. So what I know is that I don't know if I should call it unfortunate, because the original idea or the basis of the year of return didn't have that. The beginning of the year of return was actually that genuine concern for the need for African Americans in particular, or Africans in the diaspora, that are looking for ways and means to reconnect with the land, ways and means to trace their way back home. That's where it really started from. And so the history of the year of return that I know didn't start with all the paparazzi that we see coming with it and all the advertisement that comes with it. It actually started on the low, giving citizenship to African Americans that were interested. And these were people who were genuinely concerned about their roots to Africa. The political aspects and how right now the year of return has been made to look, which I agree that to some extent doesn't really appeal to the average African American who is looking for an opportunity to return actually started when the current government of Ghana launched another initiative that it called the Ghana Beyond Aid. So the year of return and now what we call Beyond the Return all came to sort of fuse into the Ghana Beyond Aid agenda. And that's part of the reasons why the year of return and the Beyond Return may appear to be not in the interest of African Americans. So yes, I appreciate that. I appreciate that concern, but for the little I know, the year of return actually started with that recognition of that genuine need. So there's that opportunity in there, but it's unfortunate that it's not been advertised enough.
Thank you so much, Eben, for your contribution. Did I see a hand up?
Yeah.
Yes, Philip, go ahead. Yes,
I want to say that maybe it's important to start thinking about the return to Africa beyond just the physical return. I think the whole idea, for me, it reinforces the point that maybe there's a disconnection that we should start to reestablish. And yes, it may require physical reconnections, but that's not the only way. So there are a number of other ways. I think my first return to African-American society was when I took a class in Nigeria called Afro-American Literature. That's what it was called. So I think it's important to consider other ways that do not necessarily meet a lot of boundaries. You're absolutely right, Damaris. You know, if you don't have the money, how do you go? But friendships can be cultivated. You know, books can be read. There are a number of social events, like I know in Detroit, that, you know, attempt to reconnect people from around the diaspora. I think perhaps I would expand on the notion of return to think about it beyond physical or geographical return. But if that happens, that's great. And I do agree with what Jonathan said, you know, and I think that's in response to Penyu, that the fact that maybe the emphasis now is on people in the diaspora because for Ghanaians, if you're from Nigeria, Cameroon, Mali, you haven't been dislocated in that same way. You know, you're still on your land, you're still connected to a number of your cultures and things like that. So maybe that's why the emphasis is on the diaspora. But having said that, I think it's also a great question that Upenyo asked, because interestingly enough, Ghana, which had the president Nkrumah the first after colonialism, one of his goals, as well as a number of Africans, was actually to make our boundaries more fluid. That, you know, right now they're very rigid, and crossing over is not always easy. And they really promoted this idea of Pan-Africanism, where we were even supposed to have a single currency across the continent. I think it is important to consider those bonds because we've lost them in many ways. And I don't want to go into details, but there have been a number of conflicts, you know, and hatred, I hate to use the word. I'm not going to go into the details, but there is perhaps something hypocritical about saying, we will welcome you, come back, and yet I'm not getting along with my neighbor. So I think it's an important question to think about, and to think about the fact that it's, even as we want to reestablish connections, we want to reunify, you know, beyond the Atlantic, what of within the continent, what's happening. I think that's important. I don't think we should disregard the importance of that aspect of the conversation.
Thank you so much, Philip. And we have about 5 minutes before the start of the next speaker. If anybody has got a comment or question, you may come forward.
I'd just like to comment. First of all, I came late, but I like what I'm hearing. Ghana sits close to my heart because I do my research in Ghana, even though I come from Kenya. And 3 years ago, I also went to the castles as a Kenyan who comes from a community that highly participated in slave trade. I come from the only kingdom in Kenya, the Wanga Kingdom. and the slaves would come from Uganda, and they'd take a break in the kingdom before they go to the coast. But my community is very quiet about what went on then. So going to the castle for me was a time for me to reconnect as an African to the African Americans. You know, when I returned to the United States after going to the castles, I came back a very changed African, because I look at the African American in front of me now. I always did have, and you know, I understood them as, yeah, people who had a certain resilience. But when you go and do that, you go to the door of return, or you go to the place where they take the last shower, or you go to the room where the men would be broken, or you go to the room where the women would be broken, it changes you as a person. And after returning to the US, I always encourage Africans to try and do this journey. It's a physical one where you can go to. It puts you in a place where you start studying yourself and studying other Black people and their experiences in ways that are different, because it's also, I see it to be a maker for Africans. You know, I have in East Africa, we in Kenya, we've got Shimoni, and we've got Tanzania, Bagamoyo. I'd like to do those trips, but this one was very, it changed me. It changed me from when I went there up to now. I embraced my Pan-Africanism, and I look at my brothers and sisters in the US differently, and the ones from the Caribbean. And I also embrace Africans differently, because I know we've all been traumatized by colonialism and slavery. Yeah, okay. I just wanted to mention that.
Tutilo, you're muted, and there's
Yeah,
a question. There's a question on the chat.
yes. Thank you. I was just going to say, Anne, thank you so much for sharing, your experiences as well visiting. The question is from Jonathan, and he's wondering, how do we Africans in Africa reconcile the fact that people who enslaved us are the same people who want to take us to heaven through Christianity? Lisa rightly says that's a very loaded question. Any takes from anybody? What do you guys think? Emmanuel?
Yeah, I would like to share something that I think resonates with the question. Since the protests that have been going on following the death of George Floyd, I was part of a conversation that was discussing, the founding of the nation, and how, the words were written down that all men are created equal. But at the time, that applied only to European Americans. And so the conversation was such that, why should now African Americans and other people of color believe that promise in that founding document that all people are created equal? Because at the time, they were not in the mind of the people that wrote that document. And a different perspective was offered, that even though the people might not have had good intentions for African Americans and people of color, it still holds that ideal, that value is good. And there's definitely a lot of trauma to work through, but that people can still buy into that good notion of equality and liberty for all, but also recognizing that the systems that were put in place to further that ideal disadvantaged, African Americans and people of color. So I think this relates to Jonathan's question is that I think we can't dismiss the good with the bad. So we don't want to throw out the baby with the bathwater. That's my 2 cents on that.
Yeah, thank you so much, Emma. And we have about 2 minutes, and I suggest that we transition to the next presenter. Unfortunately, I'm still working on the old list, so I'll ask Damaris to help introduce the next presenter, then we'll move from there. Thank you so much, everybody, for going through the first half of our talk.
Okay, Tutilo. We're still having a few more minutes because the speaker is not yet here. He'll be joining any minute from now. So if there are any questions, we can take those as we wait.
I have one.
All right, the floor is open.
Yes,
Go on.
I'll let you know when she's here.
I'm sorry?
Tutilo, I have a question. Can I go?
Yes, Eben, go ahead.
All right, thank you. So I want to pose this question to our friends, our African-American friends in particular. And it's in relation to a comment that I think Jonathan made earlier on with regards to different African countries or different regions of Africa based on our history of colonialism and where slaves were taken from Africa to other places. So I want to know from our friends, does your sense of connection to African countries vary across regions or countries? So what I mean is that do you feel like there's more of a sense of connection for some African countries than others among African Americans? I don't know if I'm able to put my question clear enough.
Yes, your question is very clear and the members will contribute. Anybody wants to. Sarah, is that a hand up?
Yes.
Go ahead.
I wanted, could Eben ask his question one more time before I said my thoughts?
So I want to know, does the sense of connection among African Americans differ for various African countries? So in other words, do you feel like more African Americans feel connected to, let's say, West African countries than countries in other parts of the region, or it's just a general sense of connection for the continent in general?
Okay, so to actually answer your question, I personally feel like more culturally connected to West Africa, but like emotionally, because I've been to East Africa, I feel more connected there. And I think it's a case of who do you know and like what relationships and connections have you built with people where. Like Marlene Muchodi and Dr. Damaris Chodi are very close to my heart while I was at MSU. So I feel more of a connection to Kenya and I feel more of a connection to East Africa because I've been to Tanzania. But if I had been to Ghana and if I had been to Nigeria or somewhere on the West Coast, I would probably feel more connected to the West Coast. I also wanted to add on with that question, Dr. Chodi's question earlier, Marlene Muchodi's question. I actually did research in my senior year at MSU about Christianity influencing, like evangelical Western Christianity influencing policy on like human rights policy in Uganda and Kenya and the differences. And so I think, like Lisa said, that is a very loaded question, but it's important to consider, like, are we talking about colonial Christianity or are we talking about like Ethiopian Christianity, you know? And I did learn that from Professor F. Young. I took his, I think IH 205 in 2018.
So Sarah, are you more connected to East Africa than West Africa? Is that what I got from you?
No, she's more connected to West Africa. How did you miss that?
You said connected to Kenya, not East Africa.
East Africa, I mean.
Right for Sarah, so I have to think twice, Sarah. Okay.
But sorry, I know I'm talking too much, but you know, Jonathan, that question is so good on Christianity. Let's not forget that there is Christianity and there's the perversion of Christianity used by those who would, and it's still used today, you know. But when you look at the presence in the Bible of Ethiopians, the Cushites, one of the first Christian dynasties in human history was Ethiopia. You know, who knows if things were different? Perhaps that's the brand of Christianity that would have spread. It didn't happen for obvious reasons. But I understand your question, but at the same time, let's look at the faith and what it really is. And let's look at the fact that regardless, it doesn't matter what the faith is, people are always going to use any kind of religious practice, you know, for selfish reasons. But when you get to the root of it, you know, Christianity was present on the African and is represented in biblical history before any of these colonizers that you're talking about. You know, so what did they come with? Did they come with Christianity? No, they labeled it Christianity, but that's not what it was. So I think it's important to establish that fact without necessary, and I'm not necessarily saying it is not true that they're the same people who have said, we're going to help you go to heaven. Of course, that's a contradiction in terms. But when we look at the real history, which is why education is so important, then we'll debunk some of those ideas like Europeans brought God to us, you know, because that's basically the point that is made. And because we brought God to you, we have a right to rule over you and direct your lives, and we're superior to you and all of that stuff.
Lisa, did you just ask? Go ahead.
Okay, so I'm speaking from the heart more because I don't study this stuff. Okay, so from the heart, as an African American person, the only thing I knew about Africa was that there were kings and queens, and it was a land that full of kings and queens. And when I was old enough to realize, I have always wanted to just go to Africa. I had no idea how huge the continent was. I just knew I wanted to go there. And oh, sorry. So even though there are problems in Africa, there are problems in the US, right? And the southern states of the US, they try to, well, I don't know the word, colonize, I don't know, whatever, the slave that they had. They, you know, they made our thinking become like we're less than anything. And so if you weren't raised in the North, in the US, more than likely your mindset was that you're nothing, you'll never be nothing, you can't do anything right. The whites they will always have rule over you, this type of thing. So to be able to go to Africa, it gave me a sense of belonging, I think is the word I'm looking for me. It gave me a sense of belonging, like this is where I belong. But then, you know, I wasn't raised in Africa. I was raised in the US. So the way the Africans may think about me may be a little different from the way I feel. I don't know if I'm making any sense, but that's just my speaking from the heart as a regular person, not a PhD.
Thank you so much, Lisa, for that contribution. And it's true, you know, every person has their own definition of a place, and sometimes does not align with what that place thinks about them. When it is very ugly, it can be racist. When it is, you know, more appeasing, it can be homely. So thank you so much, Lisa. Is there any other hand up? I don't see.
Oh, sorry,
Paul,
I cannot lift my hand, but Tutilo, I'd like to chime in on something. This is still Ern. I have a friend who does research with African Americans and Africans. So you do this ancestry DNA test, and what she has this project where she's been able to link African Americans to their cousins in Ghana, for example, or Cameroon. And now you're seeing a formation of communities or new families of African Americans and Africans, because how this experiment goes is that you do a swab, they go to the lab, so it's scientific. They do the DNAs, and they can of sorts tell you where your ancestry DNA is rooted. So yeah, so I wanted to share that as one of the scientific ways that is helping African Americans. When people ask them, where are you from? Some of them can point to a finger that I'm 90% from here, or I'm 75% from here. But this question is always, it's a very, I find it to be a very interesting question, because the assumption is that people have this authenticity. And even us Africans who say we can point to our land, if we look into our history, if we can find out that we came from other places. You know, if you do that ancestry DNA, you find that you're a combination of communities. Yeah, and what do you do with that? You know, whereas you thought that you are 100% from a certain community. Yeah, okay. I'll put the link of this, what my friend does down here. Okay, there it is.
Yeah, thank you so much, Anne. And yeah, I think most guys have heard about 23andMe and so many other ways in which you can trace your ancestry across generations. I think it was popularized by Oprah Winfrey a few years ago. And since then, everybody can, you know, say, I'm Italian, I'm half this, I'm half that. Thank you so much, Anne, even for there's a link for everybody who wants to check out what the friend does. We will transition. I see a hand up.
Yes, I had to make an announcement really quick before we go, because we have to leave. But I want to make a Congamano announcement about we're always accepting new general members and e-board members, and the sign up is on all of our social media. And if you have any questions, email me. My email is davis247@msu.edu, or also the Congamano. There's so many ways to contact me. And even through Damaris. So thank you so much for participating and being here today.
Thank you all for having me.
All right, and I think we will move into our next speaker, who is Ivy, who has just joined us right now. And we will continue with the same topic of discussion today, which is the year of return, USA and Ghana. Please join me to welcome Ivy. And she will tell us a little bit about her talk before diving right in. As usual, keep your questions all the way to the end of the talk, and then we will discuss. Thank you.
So before...
Hello, thank you.
Ivy?
Yes.
Yeah, we're so happy to have you here. I just wanted to mention that we already have questions for you. Just as you speak, know that we already have questions. So go ahead.
Okay, great. So hello, everyone who is on this Zoom meeting. I'm pleased to be here. Thank you for having me. My name, as they said, is Ivy Prosper. I am a media professional with experience as a TV host, documentary producer, writer, and speaker. I am also the social media manager for Year of Return, as well as Beyond the Return, which operates under Ghana Tourism Authority. For those who do, excuse me, for those who do not know, Ghana is a country located in West Africa. One moment, I need to drink some water, my throat is scratching. For those who don't know, Ghana is located in West Africa between Togo and Ivory Coast, also known as Cote d'Ivoire, and then bordered to the north by Burkina Faso. So Ghana is said to be The closest habitable country to the center of the earth, that's their claim to, one of their claim to fame, that it's closest to the 0 degrees longitude and latitude where they meet. It actually meets in the ocean, but Ghana is said to be the closest place people live to that point. I was born in Ghana, but I grew up in Canada. I have been living in Ghana a few years now, and I did actually live in Michigan back in 2007, 2008 while going to college. So that's a little interesting tidbit about myself. Ghana's population is about 30 million. The country's current leader is President Nana Akufo-Addo, and the country is one of the two biggest suppliers of cocoa in the world. Cocoa is used to make chocolate. There's a lot of people who don't know that Ivory Coast and Ghana together supply more than 50% of the world's cocoa. So it's a little thing that some people don't know. Ghana is also known for supplying shea butter for beauty products around the world. And it was once called the Gold Coast before independence. And the name is in reference to the high levels of gold sourced in the country. Today, Ghana represents 90% of its minerals that are exported. And Ghana is the largest producer of gold in Africa, and also produces bauxite, manganese, as well as diamonds. Now, Ghana has long been known as being a Pan-African country. People from the global Black diaspora have felt this connection to Ghana over the decades, especially since the first president, Kwame Nkrumah, was big on the whole idea of African unity on the continent, as well as with people in the diaspora to have a sense of unity. Through the decades, many Americans have traveled to Ghana, and some have lived in Ghana for extensive periods of time. Martin Luther King Jr. and his wife Coretta Scott King traveled to Ghana when the country celebrated its independence from British rule. Other people like Malcolm X, Muhammad Ali have traveled to Ghana as well. And then the co-founder of the NAACP, W.E.B. Du Bois, who he moved to Ghana in 1961. He also was somebody who did a lot of work with the first president, Kwame Nkrumah, on the whole idea of Pan-Africanism. He left the US, to get away from the racism that existed in that country and to bond with the continent of Africa. Others like Maya Angelou and Rita Marley have also lived in Ghana. And over the last few years, we've seen a lot of the new contemporary young celebrities making their way to Ghana and visiting the country as well. Now, the year of return, 2019, a lot of people don't really know exactly what it was, so I'll explain it a little bit, because a lot of people hear about Ghana having had invited people from the diaspora to come and visit. So I'll explain it a little bit for people who don't know. The Year of Return was considered to be a major landmark campaign. It was initially aimed at the African-American diaspora community when it was launched, because it was marking the 400-year anniversary of the first documented ship of enslaved Africans that arrived in what was then the English colony that is now known as Virginia. And so in doing that, it is Ghana Tourism Authority, under the auspices of the Ministry of Tourism, Arts and Culture, is who led the Year of Return campaign with the Diaspora Affairs Office, the Panifest Foundation, as well as the Adinkra Group, which is a US-based organization that focuses on bringing people from African Americans from the States to Ghana. I hope you all can hear me, because I just got a pop-up saying that my internet is a little bit unstable. Can everybody hear me?
Yeah.
Can everyone hear me?
Yes, yes.
Okay,
Loud and
perfect.
clear.
All right. And so what some people aren't aware of is that the US actually, the United States Congress had passed a bill, which is the HR 1242. And this was in 2018. And it was the 400 Years of African American History Commission. And this bill was for the purpose of developing and carrying out different activities in the United States that was supposed to help commemorate the 400th anniversary of that arrival of enslaved Africans in August of 1619. Now, Ghana recognized this and admit that the fact is Ghana had over 75% of the slave forts on the West African coast. which means that millions of Africans who were captured and taken into slavery most of them would have been shuttled through the doors of Ghana. Whether they came from other African countries and ended up in Ghana and shuttled out, we're gonna recognize that fact that so many slave forts were there. And so in recognizing that, President Nana Akufo-Addo felt compelled to make it a priority to extend the hand and welcome back those in the diaspora to the African continent and choosing Ghana. And that was sort of the catalyst for the campaign. And so in saying that and explaining that part, I wanted to share a quick video. I sent a link in to you to share, because I'm not the host on this, so I need one of the co-hosts, Damaris. I think I sent you the link. If you can share the video right now, it's about 3 minutes, 37 seconds. Australia, from all over the world, much bigger than originally anticipated by the president and Ghana Tourism, Ministry of Tourism, Adinkra Group, than what they thought it was going to be. So soon the campaign embraced all the, although there was a large number, it was more African Americans who did come compared to the rest, but people from now, the events organized under Year of Return were all done as a way to attract people to come to Ghana. Because there's a lot of never been to Africa. Do when I go. And so some of these activities were created and curated in a way that it was something to attract, especially some of the younger events that would be endorsed by the Year of Return as an official event under the Year of Return banner. So throughout the entire year, the interesting thing is a lot of people think that the Year of Return was only in the month of December, but it was the entire year from January until January 2020. So January 2019 to January 2020, there were events happening under the Year of Return. I think because December had big events like Afrochella, Nation, and there were July, August, and December. July and August, we had Pan-Fest, and the Pan-Fest activities are very Pan-African activities, cultural festivities. December had a tendency to have more of a party vibe and a half. Now, it has been reported that Ghana's tourism sector ended up having over $3 billion boost into Ghana's economy as a result of the increased travelers from the Year of Return. Now, a lot of times when people read those stories, they're like, oh my goodness, government made $3 billion. What are they doing? Announced. Isn't all money that went to the government. This is a collective amount that went into hotels, restaurants, retail stores, business owners, people selling goods, taxi drivers, Uber drivers, even the person who's selling on the street, the woman who's selling stuff in the market, the person who's selling gum. There was a woman for people to sell boiled eggs in the morning, and some of the market women. And this woman said she's never sold so many eggs in her life. That she, Year of Return, having all the people around, and through its success, it has made more people say that they want to come to Ghana, people who say they want to live in Ghana, people who want to invest in Ghana. And a lot of people ask questions like how can I get citizenship in Ghana? How can I, invest my money? How can I start a business? All of these types of things were being asked by people who came to Ghana throughout the Year of Return. Now, because of that, and because of the continued interest, the decision was made for Beyond the Return. So right now we are in Beyond the Return. So 2020 to 2030 is Beyond the Return, a decade of African Renaissance. And the whole focus of that is on building upon the things that people asked about the most. So there's pillars that are the foundation of Beyond the Return. And those pillars are invest in Ghana, celebrate Ghana, ending language and innovation, diaspora pathways to Ghana. There's two more, and I'm drawing a complete blank right now, but they're all on the website beyondthereturngh.com. There's 7 pillars that are the foundation of Beyond the Return. So that's where we are now. And this evening, as a matter of fact, I was at the Beyond the Return event. It's still, people are still there. It's still happening right now. I've left to join you here. I was interviewing people. I was being red carpet interviewing people at the event today. But Beyond the Return is definitely planned to be a more successful than Year of Return, because it's a long-term initiative, because it's more about the connection of the diaspora on a long-term basis. So that's where we are right now. A lot of people feel the reconnection with Ghana and with Africa. And even if they came to Ghana and they decided they don't want to live in Ghana, they want to live somewhere else, it's considered to be successful. That someone who may not have thought of Africa is now thinking about Africa, because there's people who've come to Ghana and decided, oh, I want to go to Tanzania instead. I want to go to Gambia instead. So I'm seeing some comments here. You said there were questions for me before I came on, so I don't want to talk too long. I'm thinking that there's questions I should be answering during the time. So if you want to let me know some of the questions.
Ivy, you're still doing quite well with your time.
Doing well with my time, okay.
Yes, so if you want to maybe wrap up in maybe 10 minutes, and then we'll have a few questions before we call it a night. Yes.
Oh, sorry. Did you want the other video played, or it's fine?
I can certainly do that. That's no problem. I just didn't know if there was a lot going on. Okay, recognize the fact that there's somebody, we don't have to play the other video. Oh. The other video basically was going to go into, the other video would have had some information about Beyond the Return. The president made the official announcement in December of last year about Beyond the Return, about that initiative. So that video towards the end was speaking a little bit about Beyond the Return, to give you a little bit of information, because I do get a lot of people who ask us about Beyond the Return. So I'll go through the pillars of Beyond the Return, because they're a direct result of Year of Return activities and what people said to us during the Year of Return. So Experience Ghana is, and so the reason why we're going to focus on the tourism aspect a little bit more is because a lot of people who came said they felt like the Year of Return focused too much on Accra, the city of Accra, the capital city, as well as Cape Coast. Cape Coast is where there's 2 of the most famous slave forts in Ghana, the Cape Coast Castle dungeons and the Elmina Castle, which have the dungeons that captured enslaved Africans were taken through. So those 2 are very big tourist sites. And so a lot of people felt that there was too much focus and emphasis on those sites and those places and not enough on other parts of Ghana. So with Beyond the Return, we wanted to respond to people's feedback. And with Beyond the Return, it's an opportunity for people to explore other parts of Ghana as well. And so there's going to be more of a focus on letting people know about other areas. And then with Invest in Ghana, that is something that's a response to people constantly asking us about how they can put their money into Ghana, how can they collaborate. And that was all about, that's all about letting people know how they can invest. So the Ghana Investment Promotion Center and the Ghana Export Promotion Authority have teamed up with us to help give people the opportunity to learn more about how to invest in Ghana, how to collaborate with people. And then they've developed a diaspora affairs desk, which is focused specifically on the diaspora, questions that you may have about how you can get involved in investing in various business opportunities, or how you can work with somebody locally, what kind of industries you can get involved in. So they have the diaspora investment desk to specifically support people from the diaspora. I see a comment in here that's set from Jonathan that says, to me, what are the goals of year of return and to what extent were they achieved? Any long-term plans? And that's what I'm talking about right now, Jonathan, is that the goal of the year of return, first of all, was to simply invite people to come and to make sure that people had an opportunity to learn about reconnecting with Africa and to learn about the history, heritage, and culture, and understand the importance of Black people around the world connecting. The president of Ghana has often made statements in some of his speeches where he says that until the African is respected, the Black person around the world will not be respected. As long as Africa is not respected and regarded, Black people in general are not respected and regarded. So if we find ways to bring Black people together and lifting each other up from both sides of the world, we can really make a huge impact and make a difference. And so with Year of Return, the first step is to come. The first step is to see the continent. The first step is to meet the people. Because there's a lot of people who would have never in their life thought about coming to the continent. And because of Year of Return, they did. We often went to greet people at the airport when they arrived. And I remember being at the airport in August. And it was when the NAACP came. The president of the NAACP came with about 250 people. And I met some people who told me that they had seen a couple of videos I did on YouTube and that inspired them to come to Ghana, and they never thought about coming to Ghana before, but now they were there, they were here in the country. So getting people to just come and make that's the first goal. So yes, that was achieved because there are people who came who never would have come. Long-term plans, you said any long-term plans, that is Beyond the Return. So Beyond the Return is a 10-year initiative that is called A Decade of African Renaissance. And it is the long-term plan right now for building upon the Year of Return. And then I see a question here from Philip saying you mentioned that a number of people who have traveled to Ghana are celebrities, Muhammad Ali, Maya Angelou, Rita Marley, W.B. Du Bois. How does the Return Initiative favor people who are not celebrities and may not have the means to travel to Ghana? Okay, so I mentioned those people, those high-profile people, because a lot of the time, the average person doesn't make a bold move until someone who's in the public eye does it, and someone they respect, someone they highly regard does it. So for instance, when 2018 December, before the official Year of Return started, Boris Kodjo, actor Boris Kodjo, and marketing executive Bozoma St. John both had been inviting some of their own personal friends to come to Ghana. And it happens to be because they're well-known celebrities, their personal circle of people are also celebrities. So when they invited some of their friends to come to Ghana and they came and they started posting on social media, people who admire them suddenly were like wanting to come to Ghana. So sometimes it takes a person who's high profile to make the decision to do something out of the ordinary to inspire others to also do that. So I had friends who never in my life said they wanted to come to Africa, sending me WhatsApp messages saying, what's going on in Ghana? Why is Anthony Anderson from Blackish in Ghana? Why is this person in Ghana? Oh my gosh, I have to come. Ludacris is in Ghana? Wow, I have to come. So a lot of people admire celebrities so much that they follow things that they do. And the average person, And I understand that traveling to Africa can be very expensive because the flight alone is a lot more expensive than saying you're going to fly from New York to Kingston, Jamaica. It's going to be a lot less expensive, a lot more expensive. But for people who truly want to do it, they will find a way, is what I always say. It is expensive, but there are people who stand in line to buy a pair of Air Jordans for hundreds of dollars. If they want to go to Africa, they'll find the means to go to Africa. That's how I look at it. There's people who spend thousands of dollars on a handbag. They want the latest handbag. They want the latest whatever fashion item it is. They want the latest iPhone. They're willing to spend, over $1,000 on it. So people choose their priorities. That's how I look at it. People choose their priorities. Of course, there's always going to be people who can't afford it, unfortunately. And I know that there are some of these high-profile people who've made it their initiative to support people. So, for example, last year, Shaka Senghor is a best-selling New York Times author. He came to Ghana last year, and he had said that he was so impacted by his trip that he knows he grew up in the hood. He grew up, in low-income situation. He's somebody who ended up being incarcerated, served time, came out of jail. He's reformed himself, and he said he recognized the importance that other people need to be able to come, and he knows that not everybody can come and spend, a couple $1,000s to fly over, a few $1,000s on a hotel. He knows that people can't afford it. So he said when he went back to the States, he was going to rally some of his celebrity friends to Africa who wanted to come to the continent. So sometimes these people who are in these positions have the means to be able to come together to try to bring people who otherwise couldn't afford to do so. I do know that not everybody's going to be able to do it, unfortunately, and that's how life goes. Not everybody's always going to be able to do it. And in the cases for those who can't, that's the opportunity to collaborate with people from afar. So for example, I know people who they want to come to Ghana, but they can't, but they want to find ways that they can feel a sense of connection through supporting through business. So there's someone here who, she's in an industry of exporting shea butter. And so she's exporting it to someone she knows in the US, and that person feels good that they're supporting someone who's in Ghana. They feel good that they're supporting a community that's helping women who are, working on these farms in the northern part of the country. So that could be one way that you're supportive, even though you can't actually be in the country. So there are ways that people try to find ways to connect, even if they can't actually be here. The other way is there are some people who are creating their own events in America and in Canada, the UK. They're creating African-inspired events. And sometimes they have, an African person who may be a high-profile person in Africa who comes to America, and they may do an event. Like I've heard stories of people who, they bring an artist who comes to America and they do this event, and they have, something that's curated around that. That may be a sense of feeling like you're getting a bit of the continent, even though you can't actually make that trip. So those are a couple of ways. Now, going back to the pillars I was talking about with Beyond the Return, because these, as I said, were the direct response to Year of Return. Probably the most important for a lot of people in diaspora is the pillar of Beyond the Return, which is called the Diaspora Pathways to Ghana. Now, last year, in Year of Return, as I mentioned earlier, people always ask, how can I become a citizen? How can I become a resident? And the Diaspora Pathways to Ghana is focused on finding ways to try to help reconnect people in a way that they can have that. Like right now, the process can take a long period of time. So, but I always let people know that Ghana does have a law called the Right of Abode. It's been the law since the year 2000, which basically says anybody of African descent can actually come and live in Ghana indefinitely. It doesn't mean you can become a citizen, but it means you can come and live in the country indefinitely. And that is operated under the Ministry of Interior. And again, it's called the Right of Abode. Let me write that down in the messages. It's called the Right of Abode for anybody who wants to look for it. And it's done by the Ministry of Interior in Ghana for people who are interested in looking it up. So there's a lot of people who come from the diaspora, they come to Ghana and then they just don't leave. They end up staying. So during this pandemic, when the pandemic started and borders closed in March, there are some people who came here on vacation. They were only supposed to be here a couple of weeks and they never left. I mean, they stayed, and there were flights that were taking Americans back to America, and a lot of people chose to stay. They were like, you know what, I'm gonna stay. I met someone the other day who said she made the conscious decision that she was just gonna stay in Ghana, and now she's looking at ways to becoming a resident and a citizen eventually. So Diaspora Pathways to Ghana was a direct response to year of return, people wanting to come. And one thing I can tell you is an announcement was made by the Minister of Tourism as well as the Director of Diaspora Affairs that Ghana is currently working on a new bill, which is called the Homeland Act. And they're working on it right now. And it's something that's supposed to help the diaspora community be able to get citizenship and residency at a faster rate and a special process for them that's different than for everyone else. It hasn't passed yet, so it's still in the process. So I tell people to be patient because governments, you know how governments are around the world. A lot of times things don't go as quickly as you would like them to, but they are looking at doing that. So yeah. So the year of return overall was a success. It definitely has opened people's eyes to Africa, and other African countries saw how successful it was for Ghana. There are other African countries who have started conversations about doing something of their own to invite people to come to the continent. And they're seeing that there is value in creating spaces where African Americans and, you know, Caribbeans and, you know, Black people from South America, from all over the world can come and feel like it's home and feel like they're connecting with their roots, especially when they're in situations where they may be living somewhere where they don't feel welcome, they don't feel like it's home, they don't feel safe. They want to start a new experience, a new opportunity, and the continent of Africa is a great place to start. But I always tell people you have to have patience because it is still a developing continent. There are a lot of things that are still you know, challenging when it comes to infrastructure, and you have to be willing to be patient and build from the ground up because it is definitely an emerging market.
Okay, Tutilo, can I ask something?
Yeah, I was going to first say thank you so much, Evie, for such an interesting presentation, especially that you're right at the heart of the organization you're running, you know, you have got information. And so you don't be surprised when we have, you know, so many questions, you know, people just trying to understand a little more.
Go right ahead, and we can go over time, I don't mind.
And, yeah, Damaris will go right ahead.
Yes, I mean, I'm just going to extend the response you gave about the cost attached to going back to Ghana. And I appreciate the fact that you put it out there that, I mean, it's doable. So except for the costs of flying, of traveling specifically, are there any other costs involved, especially like if you want to get citizenship, how expensive it is? Or is there any cost at all? Maybe there isn't. So what other costs if somebody decided I really want to go back, except for just the expense of traveling, like airfare and stuff like that, maybe the cost of living when you get there, but what else that is in the procedure of going back in terms of
the cost of living in Ghana can be quite high if you choose to live a lifestyle that is similar to what you're living in America. So there's a lot of people, especially if you choose to live in the capital city of Accra. So one thing to consider is when it comes to citizenship, I don't know what the cost is right now at this moment. I do know that it's more than 1,000 Ghana cedis for one of the forms or something that needs to be filled out. But I think it's best that you check with the Ministry of Interior to get the exact current information, because I know that it's changed from the last time I checked. So, but that doesn't happen until you've been living in the country for a while. So a lot of people think that they can come to Ghana and then automatically apply for citizenship, but you can't. You have to live here for a while before you can start to say you can apply for citizenship, because they're gonna ask you, well, you just got here. Because we had people last year who would come and be like, I'm on holiday for 2 weeks. I want my citizenship. And it's like, well, it doesn't happen that quickly. You do have to show that you're genuinely interested in living here and investing in the country in some way, whether it's through your service of working, doing a business, whatever it may be. You have to be living in the country for a period of time before you would actually get citizenship. Residency status often comes from when you start working or when you start a business and you apply for the residency. The only thing is when you start a business in Ghana, if you're registering a business and you are not a citizen, the amount of money that the government requires is very high. And most people don't have access to that. So it's often advisable that you speak with the Ghana Investment Promotion Authority. Sorry, Ghana Investment Promotion Authority and the Ghana Export Promotion Authority. Let me put that in the comments too, because they will advise you based on the type of business you're interested in. Because there are some businesses where you don't need to have large amount of capital to get started. If you're doing an export business, you don't need a large amount of capital to start an export business in Ghana because you're exporting. You're not trying to do a bricks and mortar place there. So the Ghana Export Promotion Authority can advise people on that. But I always tell people that you should have some savings before you move to Ghana because it is still a developing nation. There is not an infrastructure for things like social assistance. So things like welfare, things like food stamps, things like unemployment insurance. Those kinds of things are not here. And they're not usually in a lot of African countries. There is not the infrastructure for those types of things. I've had people ask me that. There was a woman who said that, she's in the States. She says she has 3 children. She's currently on a financial support, the welfare system. And she wanted to know if something like that existed in Ghana if she came. She would not be able to get anything like that if she came here. So if that's the case for an individual, don't come here and hope that you're going to get access to those types of services because you're not going to get it. So it's good to prepare. I usually tell people to have at least 6 months to a year of living expenses before you decide to pack up and move to Ghana. Or if you know people who can help you while you're there along the way, then it's a little bit easier because there are a lot of people who, when they come to Ghana on a trip, they make friends and they make connections. And a lot of Ghanaians are very friendly and very hospitable. Like there's a lot of people who have homes with extra space and they're willing to let people live with them until they get on their feet in the country. So it all depends on how you make your transition into Ghana. But as far as your first trip, you do need to get a yellow fever vaccination. That is mandatory. You cannot come to Ghana if you don't have a yellow fever vaccination. So whatever the cost of that is, what they're charging, where you go, you would have to pay for that. You have to get your visa to come to the country. Unless you're from like citizens of Jamaica, Trinidad and Tobago, they don't need a visa. Barbados, they don't need a visa to come to Ghana. So those are additional costs that you would need to come as well. I'm just trying to think of what else. And most places in Ghana charge at least 6 months to a year advance rent upfront before they're rent to you. So that's something to also consider. 6 months to a year upfront rent.
Okay, I'm asking this for a colleague who left. I don't think Upenyu is here.
Okay.
Quickly for him, he asked about the citizenship. I mean, I don't know if he had information about it, but then he was saying that he understands that, that there is a limitation to having a citizenship in Ghana, like for the African diaspora, for example, you might not be able to vote. So do you have any thoughts or ideas about that? Is it limited?
If you become a citizen, you can vote in Ghana. As long as if you actually become a citizen, you can vote in the country. So once you're sworn in as a citizen of Ghana, you have the right to vote. If you're a resident, then no, a resident doesn't have the right to vote. A citizen has the right to vote.
Okay. Thank you so much, Damaris and Ivy. Anybody else with a question? Yes, Isaac, go ahead.
I just wanted to thank you, Ivy, for this very informative and quite inspiring discussion on the return and the possibilities, the challenges, the things to consider. I think that was very, very helpful for a lot of us who've been wondering what Ghana is doing and how this is all panning out. Very, very interesting and inspiring. It just leaves me with the thought that perhaps African countries may need to revisit the whole immigration, citizenship process more, specifically in the case of African Americans or other people of the African diaspora, because what we are basically doing is holding on to those old rules that came through colonialism, first of all, and also old rules that apply to Europe and to American processes of how a person gets citizenship. It takes me back to history, where I am reminded of Marcus Garvey, who I think is sort of missing in our discussion today. Earlier on, we had a discussion about, the whole notion of coming back to Africa and, the wherewithals and the whys and hows. But Marcus Garvey extended a philosophy that started in Africa, which was the Africa for Africans idea, Ethiopianism, that sort of philosophy, which Marcus Garvey extended to Africa for Africans at home and abroad. So for a long time, until Marcus Garvey came along, the whole fight on the continent when Africans were experiencing colonialism, their movement was based on this notion of Africa for Africans. Here comes Marcus Garvey and he extends it to Africa for Africans at home and abroad. And what that does, it really places a demand on the African continent on behalf of people of the African diaspora that says we have a right to be back in Africa, right? So yes, obviously that return has to be done orderly. It has to be done, in an administratively sound manner. However, the system that we are using, in my humble opinion, is one that really is not friendly to the process of returning, because we are simply acting like an America that is receiving an immigrant from wherever, or we are acting like a Germany that is receiving an immigrant from wherever. Whereas, if you think about the philosophy of Africa for Africans at home and abroad, if you think about the philosophy of Ubuntu or Hunuism and all these, our mandate or our sort of modus operandi should be about embracing people of African descent and creating a space for them that is special. We can't speak on both sides of our mouths. We can't say, you're welcome here, you have an African heritage, this is your country, but wait a minute, I'm going to treat you just like any other person that's coming from wherever. I think we need to create an orderly policy that allows people of African descent to, probably having proven their real interest and genuineness in wanting to come back, can have an easier way, an easier pathway to citizenship.
Yeah,
just,
that's is exactly why the Ghanaian government is looking at working on that Homeland Act that I mentioned earlier, because it's a way to make it a little easier for people who are of African descent to have a different process than the European or the Asian or people from other places. So yeah, you make some very valid points. And it's interesting you brought up Marcus Garvey. I had an opportunity to meet his son, Julius, during the Year of Return. I interviewed him. He came as part of the Year of Return as well. They had an event, I think it was called the Door of Return, all about inspiring people to come to the continent as well. So yeah.
Can I say something?
Oh, yes.
Yeah, I just want to add to what Isaac said. It's good to recognize that there are couple of African countries where You don't need a visa to get to some of them if you come from certain European countries or the United States, whereas you need visas to get to these African countries if you come from African countries. So I'm just saying that to reinforce what Isaac has said, and it's all good, it's wonderful, but there are a number of issues that I think need to be addressed. I'm not saying this for you to address them, Ivy. I'm just putting this out there as a significant part of the conversation. Like Isaac said, we can't keep talking through both sides of our mouths. And the fluid boundaries, which I think you referred to, Isaac, I don't know what we can do to dismantle them, but I think one of the consequences of the kind of enslavement and colonialism that we've gone through is the fact that it's created not just physical boundaries between us, but other boundaries. So there's a lot of animosity, a lot of distrust, and some of those things need to be honestly addressed so that when we're talking about embracing people, receiving people into Ghana, what about amongst ourselves? I think that's very important. And this is just a comment to add to what Isaac has said, because again, the whole philosophy, whether it's Marcus Garvey or Nkrumah, who you mentioned, they shared the same philosophies of breaking down boundaries and having Pan-Africanism in a real economic sense, not just to have it on paper. And unfortunately, I don't know if that's really been achieved, but for that to be achieved, the connections cannot only just be across the Atlantic, but we have to look at ourselves on the continent as well. Thank you.
I agree. I wanted to answer a question that came from Philip earlier. It said, why don't citizens of certain Caribbean countries not require visas? Philip, that has to do with agreements that are made between the countries. So for instance, last year, Ghana's president traveled to a number of Caribbean countries to try to strengthen the bonds between Ghana and the Caribbean. And so some agreements were made in the process. So it was just last year that after meeting the Prime Minister of Jamaica, that it made it visa-free for Jamaicans. The Prime Minister of Barbados came to Ghana as well, and then the Ghanaian tourism group, Ghana Tourism Authority, went to Barbados, and then they came back to Ghana again. So they were establishing those relationships, and then were able to work on having visa-free. Trinidad and Tobago, one of their ministers also came to Ghana. So it's a process that's been happening over time. And hopefully it'll be something that will end up being for all of the Caribbean countries, that they won't need visas to come to Ghana. So, but then the interesting thing about that though is there's the problem of there not being direct flights. So there's been conversations happening right now of trying to get the airlines to agree to doing some direct flights, because that's an issue as well. Because when people came from Barbados, they were like, it took them almost the whole day to get to Ghana because they had to fly from Barbados to the US and then to Ghana, or they fly from Barbados to the UK and then to Ghana rather than direct. Because if there was a direct flight from Barbados to Ghana, it would only be like a 5-hour flight, So that's another challenge that's being worked on, to try to see if there's any airlines to come into agreement to have direct flights, because that would definitely be beneficial for people and be more encouraging and be less expensive than having to do these transferring through other countries, And then to your point, Philip, about, strengthening the bonds within the continent, there's the problem of flights within the continent that are not direct. Like I know people who, they want to go from one African country to another, but then they got to fly to Belgium and then come back to Africa. And it's like, why do you have to leave and go to Europe before you can come to another African country? It's just so silly, So all those things need to be worked on to connect the continent as well. Yeah.
Definitely very true. Thank you so much, everybody. We have just crossed the top of the hour, and I would ask if there's anybody with a really burning issue before we close up for the day's discussion? Philip, do you have your hand up? I see it's still hanging. All right. That being said,
I was clapping, yeah.
Okay. Thank you for clarifying that. All right. That being said, I will then go ahead and thank all our presenters of the day for such an enlightening talk. As always at Kongamano, more specifically the African Tea Time, we really like to tease our brains. And don't stop the conversations. Keep sharing resources sent to us, and we share with the rest of the speakers. Damaris, do you have any other words or announcements before?
Okay, I first also want to say thank you so much, Ivy, and the presenter that we had earlier left before you came in. I should say that we've had a very vibrant discussion, and it's a genuine one, because I don't think many people do even know about a year of return or anything to do with going back to Africa, any initiatives. So this is a very enlightening talk, and I think it's a good thing to continue the conversations. For example, when you have Beyond the Return launched, we should actually come back and talk about, okay, what's going on now, instead of making it just a one-time thing and we're all done. Because I think these are things that the discussions I believe that we should be having going forward, because if we stop it here, then the questions that were being asked, the issues that Isaac and Philip raised would not be responded to until we know that what's the process, like what's going on. And with that, I want to thank you so much. I also want to announce that we're having another African Tea Time in 2 weeks, and it's going to be about the resources for helping curb the spread of COVID-19. I mean, I don't have the exact title for that. If somebody has that, Eben or Tutilo, but then we're going to talk about Senegal and Madagascar. Yes. Reason why we chose these two countries is because for Madagascar, I don't know if you heard this, we want to call it a rumor for now, unless we have the speaker of Madagascar come next week. They were talking about the herbal remedies for COVID-19. And we thought it's very interesting. Is it a rumor? Is it something that is working perhaps within the country? Is it something that is widespread within Africa? Have people heard about this? So we're going to have that conversation with a speaker who from Madagascar, and then we're also having somebody from Senegal. Reason being that Senegal has been in the news for at least doing better than most of the countries in terms of having kind of, what can I call them, strategies, I should say, to combat COVID-19. So that's what the discussion is going to be. And again, I welcome you, the students that came from IIH classes, welcome back. Even when you're not invited to come from class, just welcome back, because this is what we do every other time. We just have an open discussion, and we learn so much by doing this. I remember Ivy was telling you that the discussion part is what makes the African Tea Time. We want us to engage freely, talk, ask questions, and that really makes the most essential part of the conversations at African Tea Time. So I'm grateful for your participation, and we are going to go off recording if somebody doesn't have anything, but please feel free to stay a little bit if you have time just to hang out. We do that at tea time. We're done, but then we're not done. We don't close doors until the last person leaves. So Nicole, we're done on the recording part, but you're welcome to stay for a little bit.